Thank you very much. Well, good evening. Thank you. Do I need to have the microphone? I guess we don't. Yeah, it's a small room. And I'm really honored and pleased to be here. And I've met a lot of new friends. I think this is very good. And I know a few people here. And so I just want to say a few words first. I'm not good as a joke teller. I cannot have jokes. But I was able to talk. And but I do feel that this is a great opportunity that the board asked me to come to speak to you because the time has changed so much in this region, not just because of the topic of the Chinese Americans, but it's just in general, and we're seeing tremendous changes. So I asked, why am I here to talk to you? We all live in Seattle area. We all have been here for a while. So, what's the big deal? But I feel that I can tell you a little bit about me, that I've been around here for a long time. So I was here in 1958. I was born in Kunming, in China, and then went to Hong Kong in 1949. And then in 58, I came to the United States to go to college. And the first place I stopped in San Francisco, I stayed there for a few weeks. I have an uncle there who was immigrated to the United States for many years in the early 40s. So I was there. And then I came to Seattle. I went to Seattle Pacific, at that time, School College. And so since then, I studied for, about 1 year at Seattle Pacific. Then I transferred to University of Washington for my bachelor degree in engineering. And because I had such a great, memorable experience in Seattle, I came back to work for Boeing. But actually, it's more than that. When we were looking for work when I first graduated, we didn't really have that many opportunities as a Chinese American, as immigrant. So that's part of history. I hope I can share with you a little bit, and from my own story, that has transpired in the last 60 years, actually. This year's 2018, so 58, that's 60 years. That's a long time ago. At that time when we came to the United States, we had to study engineering because that's the only profession that has the opportunity to find jobs in this country. Otherwise, you will not be employed anywhere. You will not be able to stay. And after school, you go home. If you don't know where to go, tough luck. You get sent on a boat and you become a, boat person, I guess. And so you have to study engineering. Everybody knew that. That's why there's so many engineers among Chinese. And then you have to find a job. When I graduated, I studied electrical. I figured, wow, electrical engineer, you should be able to get any job. Today, you're an electrical engineer, you are in high demand. But in those days, the company that are hiring are all military, sensitive military jobs. And so you need to have a security clearance. So as a foreigner, not even immigrant, as a student, you can't get security clearance. So what jobs do you get? So you have to have very limited opportunities. And so what else can you do? Fortunately, Boeing is in making commercial airplanes, big business. And at that time, they were looking for lots of engineers. They were hiring engineers from Great Britain, from Canada. And so, I find my job at Boeing. And I was very lucky. I like this area anyway. I was familiar. So I came here and worked for Boeing and I stayed ever since. And that's a very lucky thing for me. I was able to do that. But the history even goes beyond that. When I worked for Boeing, they apply permanent residence for you. So you apply, and not many companies would even apply. So I'm lucky that Boeing is big enough a company. They're hiring a lot of engineers from all over the world. So I was one of those, and they applied permanent residence. So apply, and you have to wait. And you have to wait for quotas. In those days, some of you understand what quota means. For the younger people, you have no clue what quota is. Quota means you cannot become eligible to become a resident, permanent resident, unless you have a big enough a quota within the number of people every year they are allowed to become a permanent residents. And their quotas are based on the people that are in the United States at the time it becomes United States of America. So at that time, the Great Britain has the most people here. So they have the biggest quota, like 500,000 people can come to become US residents, permanent residents every year. But in those days, in 1880s, whatever, 7, how many Chinese were there? Not that many. So the quota for Chinese, 200. So amazing. If there's a 200 quota, how many years you have to wait to become eligible? It's like forever. Because if 1,000 people apply before you, it's going to wait for 50 years, right? So that's pretty tough. So you wait. So the way they did is they have special congressional bills every so often. When they have enough people on the waiting list, they say, wow, let's declare a special bill. They tag on to the end of a budget. Or some congressman, if you become a friend of a congressman, when they pass a bill on anything, they can tag it on. After 10 items listed, the number 11, my friend Conrad Lee can become a permanent resident. You become a permanent resident. But for those of us who are on the waiting list, we don't know that kind of politics. You don't have friends, influential friends in Congress, right? If you happen to be lucky, when you happen to, let's say, you become a servant, a houseboy for a congressman, and you happen to be on the waiting list, you got to admit it the next day, right? But for us, honest people who work as engineer, I don't know any congressman, so I waited. The average wait is 4, 5, 6, 7 years wait to become a permanent resident. During the period when you're waiting as permanent residents, you cannot do anything. You cannot leave this country because you have no paper, no official status, no paper. You cannot leave here. You cannot go to Canada. I cannot go to Mexico. Can't wait. So, and also as a permanent resident, since you are not illegal, you're a statusless alien waiting for official status, you cannot break any laws. That means when I was driving, I could not get a traffic ticket. If I get a traffic ticket, then you broke a law. You are not a good person of a good character. You're out. Even now we look at what we are doing. We're talking about DACA. We're talking about the right of the illegals, right? Things change a lot. But so I just gave a social context. For Chinese Americans, that's the topic we talk about. So, my talk is pretty easy, because I'm not a historian. I'm not a very good student, so I didn't study a lot about history. But I learned by school of hard knocks, by my personal experience. So I've lived here long enough. I've seen that, how the Chinese Americans have changed over the years. And we all know, before, when we came, the first Chinese came in 1800s, and we all knew about the railroad workers, government miners, laundry people, finally opening up restaurants, people who came here, all those people who came to struggle, people of a little bit of less educated people who come here for economic reasons. And so that's, to me, there's a lot of things written about them. And, I didn't have personal experience, obviously. But when I came here in the late 50s to 60s, I have personally a lot of those folks. The families has grown up, they have become somewhat successful, they've established themselves economically. Basically, the thing they are looking for, their goal is really looking for basic economic survival. Just to be here, have a family. If they can send money back home, they do. If they can, have family to bring up here, they do. And then they just basically survive. when they are comfortable, when they're not having to struggle, they just have an easy, comfortable life. And with the hope in the next generation, the children will then go to schools, will get educated. The children would get professional jobs, and children would become engineers, or whatever. And so I think that's really the kind of community we are looking at when I'm here. When I was here earlier, when I was here, go to school, and I graduated, came to work for Boeing as an engineer, I got to know some of these folks. So you don't see too many community involvement. The kids are hardworking, they're good students, they're competitive, but the parents are, basically, they work all their life, very challenging life, and the education level is not that high, so they're not really very well integrated in the community per se. So you don't see too many of them, that's active in the community, and particularly, of course, in politics. With a few exceptions. Some have achieved something who study law. A number of them I can name. One is you probably have not heard. You probably have heard. Ruby Chow. She's the first Chinese American woman, even just Chinese American, who got become elected to the city of Seattle or King County Council member. And she and her husband owned a restaurant. And so she had lots of friends, the mainstream Caucasian friends. So she made a lot of contacts, a lot of connections. She's very friendly, hospitable. And she also took care of a lot of Chinese young people, one of which is Bruce Lee. When Bruce Lee came to the United States, he worked in her restaurant. So she took care of all these young people, give them, help when they need it, and encourage them to go out and do other things. So I think that's a very big influential. And she really had raised a family that had, maintained that tradition. One of her daughters, I think the only daughter, had become a Seattle City Council member. And then one son became a judge, Mark Chow. And he's still on the bench right now. She elected judge. And then she also has a son that became the Veterans Administration's assistant director or secretary in Washington, D.C. So she really has given a more of a expectation and hope and a mission beyond the ordinary measure of success. Really trying to be more engaged, involved, and provide a voice community. And she was one of the founders for the Chunghwa Benevolent Association, which is a organization that actually helped the overall Chinese American in the community, young people, senior people, people who need help. In the past, the help that Chinese got is from towns, from family associations. I heard stories when my father-in-law was educated in University of Chicago, got his medical degree in 1932 or something like that. When he came, the only association as a Chinese you have is with the town, with the family. And you have the last name, Chen, okay? Then you go to the Chen family, and they look after you. They took care of you. They take off their coat and give it to you to wear, and they find a place for you to stay. That's how he survived. So that's how the Chinese American really help each other, and really that's how they integrated with the community, which is really not much. So I think the Chunghwa Benevolent Association is one of the first that's outside of town, outside family association, that have been established to help and assist in the young people. And Chunghwa also started the Chinese drill team. I think they're still going on today. Young women, young girls that learn how to march and so on. So this is, to most people, that's the first generation. That's the first wave of the Chinese immigrant, the modern contemporary. Before that, obviously, the railroad workers, the gold rushers, we don't have much, And I think if you look at, it's probably focused and concentrated in San Francisco, and I think they have some Chinese histories. In Seattle, they have this 1820 Chinese Exclusionary Act. Of course, those are just real historical things. And I think China has to be been traditionally hardworking, and there was some very smart legal mind even at that time among Chinese in San Francisco. They fought legally in court on some of the issues, but as you know, there's a lot of politics involved. There's a sort of social connection. So it really is not much of a wave that the Chinese American made in this country. The first wave. So I look at my generation coming here in the late 40s, mostly actually in the 50s, because Korean War also just ended. So many Chinese, the first generation, and beyond this, I call there's another group of Chinese who came here to go to college, not just to get survival, not just to work, not just to bring the family, but actually want to be educated, want to find opportunities. Whether they get educated, go back to China, or whether they stay here and they can become part of the community. That's another group that came in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. And they come from Taiwan, and most of them actually come from Taiwan, because in the 49s, that's just when communists took over. So obviously, U.S.-China relationship stopped. So you didn't see too many people from mainland China. Practically, it's none, actually, basically, right? So the Taiwan people came. The Taiwan people came, most of them go to graduate school. Actually, University of Washington did not accept undergraduates from over international students. The program they had is for graduate students only. So people like me coming from Hong Kong, we come to undergraduate. We couldn't get into UW. Okay, so that's why I went to Seattle Pacific. They only accept graduate students. So we have people like myself who went to Seattle Pacific, undergraduate. And one of the interesting part of that is, the graduate students from Taiwan, they all go to UW, they study whatever graduate degree. And mostly it's boys. And the undergraduates from Hong Kong, from other places, from Asia, other places, they go to Seattle Pacific and, liberal colleges. And every weekend, the graduate students from UW, Chinese from Taiwan, they all drove their car to park on the campus or trying to court the young ladies, young students, undergraduate from Seattle Pacific. So that goes on every weekend. And many marriages actually resulted from that relationship. So it's interesting. But again, it's basically a period of surviving and learning how to advance, how to find our spot in this country of United States of America. It's not easy from the things that I mentioned to you. As a permanent resident, you have to wait, before you become permanent residents, you become really stateless. So you constantly working with no security, really not as your country, until you got a permanent residence. But when you become a permanent resident, you have to wait for 5 more years to become a citizen. So it's a long drag, and all during this time, for people in this generation, one of them, James, sitting here, you have no country. For me, you go to Taiwan, you're supposed to be Republic of China. If you're from China, there's nobody from China. Go to Hong Kong, we're not British citizens. You're not born there. So I'm not a British, So wherever you go, no matter where you end up, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, or wherever, you don't belong there. So we have no country to call home. Okay, until the day when you become a citizen. That's the day, I feel personally, one of the most meaningful, the proudest day in my life is, hey, I have a place I can call home. Right? You find my freedom. So that's important milestone. And the importance also, we have the opportunity to really go to school to compete. We can get master's degrees, graduate students, and people study PhDs, go to good schools. Michigan, I end up with Michigan because I went to engineering there. And MIT, Harvard saw that. And so, but we all form our own group, but it's a different group altogether. It's no longer restaurant owners, no longer laundry shopkeepers, no longer menial jobs. We are at a different level. But this group of people who came here, and I have some a little older people, relatives, who were here, I forgot to mention, in the 50s. They were here as engineers after the Korean War. But they were very discriminated after the Korean War because the U.S. had a fight with China because of Korea. So they couldn't get jobs. They couldn't get engineering work. So they have a hard time. So they start forming their own consulting groups. They start forming their own small businesses with their expertise, with their technology. And they go into business. That's another thing. So being enterprising. So that's, a small business, individual, self-sufficient, but they do well, make a good living professionally. They are needed. So I think that's the kind of background, the makeup for this group of people. So this group of people, because we came during very challenging circumstances, and we are a smaller group of migration. So when we came here, we understand the challenge. So we keep to ourselves. We keep our heads down. We don't stick our neck out because we know the danger of sticking your neck out. You got chopped. And this country also, we are the very minority of it, and we want to be able to integrate. We want to be invisible. That's what we want it to be. So as a result, we are good workers. We're producers. I think, did a lot to benefit the economy of this country, but we didn't visibly get too much from it because we don't want to stick our neck out there. So to me, I call it. Some of us call it. It's the second wave of the Chinese migration into this country. Nobody recognizes it. Nobody knows. Nobody talk about it. What's the second wave? It's the quiet people, the quiet folks who did their thing, who did well in terms of success, financially and whatever. But they are invisible. So really, I call them the invisible generation. And so this is the group I belong in. And so, then now, however, the last 10 years, with the resurgence of China economically and so on, and with the, opening of the relationship, all this, and basically it's the economy that's driving this. There's a lot of Chinese coming. This is really the future, I believe. This is really the future that's going to impact. Because this country, or any country, are affected by immigration tremendously. When you have a real big, strong immigration force, I think the next generation of immigrants, that one that we are witnessing right now, it's very powerful. Most of them are educated. Most of them are economically successful. They all have businesses, and they're successful in their way. And, and they know what they are capable of, and they know one thing, in contrast with China, they realize their place in the sun, what they are used to. So when they come to this country, and they find that the situation is not quite what they expect, the return of success is not quite as simple, as easy. So they are facing some challenges, but because of their training, education, economic success, they respond. They respond very strongly, very actively, and very visibly. And I think this is the generation, not just one generation, but I think affects the next several generations. Because one of the reason why they come here is because it's for their children. It's for their next generations. So I think that's tremendous implication, influence on our community. And at the same time, we are going through, in this country, in the world, we're going through a period of leveling, social leveling. Everybody has to be equal. Everybody has a strong voice. Everybody has equal chance and equal shot and equal recognition. So I think Chinese is one of the group, and they catch on very fast, and they are asking lots of questions, and they are visible because they do have influence. They have money, and if you go to the Bellevue, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when I first ran for office 25 years ago, we have less than 10% minority. Chinese probably 1%, maybe less. And today, Bellevue is over 50% minority. 1/3 of the population were born outside the United States. So, and a lot of them is from China. Chinese is the number one minority group. And second is India. And then you have Koreans, Vietnamese, and all the rest. And so we have become a very dominant force. And also, they do have influence because they are the biggest consumers. And they are driving the housing prices up. So that economically, very much of a force to reckon with. And also, as I mentioned, they feel that they are looking at the kids, future generation, that they are being treated equally, fairly, just as much as any other groups. So that is coming to a real head-on challenge. How do we accommodate and work through the especially today, we're talking about a polarizing world. The people are really divided. Even though we're going through a period of diversity, multiculturalism, which is good, because that's where the United States gets its strength from, right? Because we're multicultural, we have lots of ideas working together. But at the same time, multiculturalism, if we are collaborating, we are cross-fertilizing, that's a good thing. But now there's a tendency that cultures digging in to becoming more and more siloed to itself. So it becomes counterproductive. It becomes competing with each other. At the same time, we have come to the mindset that we are working with limited resources. The world is thinking that way. So instead of growing the pie, we're trying to fight for the same pie. That's what we're seeing. We're talking about identity politics. If you are of this color, if you're of this race, you have this age, this genders, automatically you are on one side or the other. So instead of working, collaborating, we are not. So I think this Chinese movement, Chinese generation, the newcomers are getting into this struggle just at this time, which I would say is a challenging time when all this is happening. So how do we reconcile? Say, is this my right or is it our right? How do I, how do I share this right that we've earned? Who deserves it, or who has to earn it? So I think a lot of questions involved, and we're seeing that already rearing its head. Some of this in Bellevue, for example, this Bellevue School District is going through a program, a policy discussion, whether the enrichment classes should be open more equally to other groups, even though they may not may not meet the criteria of becoming enrichment, because there's only so much resources. It's no different than UW Law School, right? You say we want more money because we deserve it. So somebody else deserves more. So you just have a continued fight. So the Chinese, this enrichment classes, even though Chinese population is not that big. Even in Bellevue, it's less than 10%. But statewide, it's less than that, 9%. But the enrichment class comprises mostly 90% Chinese. So it's disproportionate. So they say they have the best teachers, the best resources, the most resources go to the enrichment class. So the other students seem to be at a disadvantage. So for the school district, for the society, this is the right thing to do because we want to have everybody share the same resources, the same quality as the talent, the gifted ones. Because another problem is that the society has become more and more divided. The middle class we see in this country is becoming smaller. Before, middle class is the largest class in the country. Middle class, we're all in the middle class, we all enjoy the same. But now it's really bigger. The rich is richer, the poor gets poorer. So I think this is a condition, socially anyway, they want to do something about. So they want to narrow the gap. That means they have to spread more resources among everybody. So that becomes a threat to the Chinese parents. As well, we are going to get less resources. We're going to get less attention. So our kids are going to benefit. And we are paying taxes, right? Especially if they are well-to-do, if they are better educated, better jobs, they're paying more taxes. They say, why am I paying more taxes? And I'm getting less back in return. So there's a lot of contention. But they forget in all the discussion that the status we have achieved, the equality, the racial equality, whatever, gender equality, whatever equality we're talking about, actually, it is earned by 60 years, 100 years of struggle by minority groups. That's before us, that were here, whether it be the laborers, railroad laborers, or laundry workers, or in this case, the African Americans, slave laborers. They fought a long way. So there's some recognition that we're all in this together. But unfortunately, the fast influx of the Chinese Americans coming here, they are not quite catching on to this perspective yet. And they believe that we deserve just as much, without having to pay for and understand the sacrifice that's been made, by other groups. So there's a contentious situation potentially that could be even. I think we talk about it. When you have a lot of situation where we don't realize it could be explosive. So as a result, I think it's important we want to educate. We want to take the time. We want to make sure the new immigrants, Chinese Americans, understand and realize the political ramification, social norms, where they can gain, their place in the sun, getting the importance of addressing their needs in a way that everybody can share, can understand, which is what the system's based on. So that's why I feel that we have a challenge and we have a responsibility. Those of us who value the U.S.-China relationship, because I think those two countries are, in a way, the key countries in the future. They are now currently the two truly meaningful global countries in the world. If you want to be global, you got to include China and U.S., and everybody recognizes that. And we are the two strongest economy. We're the two biggest market. We're the two, biggest brain, the talents in the world. And I think that makes sense. So to do that, we need to really have understanding of working, together, as Chinese American, as Americans, how we can educate the future generation through them and their parents, that we can really do the things that we talk about, which is collaboration, which is we need to work together through maybe through our families, through our future, through economic development. So I think they all make sense. So I've taught enough. Now maybe it's just some questions and answers. And before I close, I have a book here, which most of you probably are not aware of, don't know. It has an English version and Chinese version. The English version is called The Second Wave. The Chinese is, I have a copy of the Chinese book. I couldn't find my English version. I don't know what I did with it. But it's available in the library. And also it's available at Amazon. If you're interested, it describes the second wave, the generation James and I are in. And, we are the parents of a lot of young people today that are becoming lawyers and doctors and so on and so on. And I think this is the migration, the history, and at least not from a historian perspective, or not even somebody who don't know much about history, but just from my own, living experience, my own life. I believe that these are the three distinct migrations of the Chinese American coming here. So we've lived the first one, which is pretty tough struggle, and the second one, I think we've seen the early establishment of real integration and contribution to this country. And the third wave is the one I think has probably the most potential, but it's most important, how they can build a lasting collaboration instead of having more tension and strifes and the response and reaction. Because I think we all know that the current world is very, very much split and very much at tension with one another. And so we can't tolerate that if we are concerned about our future generation, because it's got to be, everybody lives, I got the part, you want to leave this place a better world for your future generations. So we got to do whatever we can. So if anyone, want to take a look at the book, I'll be here and interested. And it's written by a woman by the name of Dory Yan. Yeah, she's very good. Anyway, so I will entertain some questions and answers. And please, yes.
This third wave.
Yes.
I'm going to assume, and maybe I'm wrong, that it's mostly from mainland China. Many of them coming to Bellevue for the public school system, which is very good.
Yes.
And how are, if that's correct, how are they showing? You say there seems to be some contention and conflict. How does that manifest itself? How does that conflict manifest itself?
Yes. There are many ways, of course. The first, I know any specific order, but just come to my mind. The one is, how does it manifest itself? They go to Bellevue because it has one of the best reputation school district. And the kids, the ultimate proof is what school their kids can get to go into, okay? And the first list of schools is Ivy League colleges, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Yale, Ivy League college schools. And as we know, it's not easy to get into those schools anyway, but especially for the expectation of the Chinese parents, they think that, if you have connection, you can get into it. And for most of them, they don't have connections, right? This is a foreign country. Like I said before, I don't know any. I did not know. I know now. I know a lot of congressmen. But before, when I was a student, I didn't know any congressmen. Right? It's like knowing the king. Who gets to know the king? Or the emperor, actually. So they're frustrated. They don't know. So they say, well, they cannot buy in either. Money is no good, right? In this country, money is no good. So who do they know? Hard. And so then they want to look at, well, why can't the kids go to Harvard? The kids all doing very well. They did all the right things. They get the best grades, everything, good students. They have all kind of extracurricular activities. So they apply for these colleges. But these colleges have standards, not just based on academic achievement. Now even not just based on what they fulfill as extracurricular activity. Everybody gets 400 hours of volunteer time. Big deal, right? And it becomes very tricky. They don't not understand what are the criteria why the kids cannot go in. My friend's kid get to go, and mine doesn't. What happened? Some other kids they don't think it's good enough gets to go. So it's very frustrating, and there's no access to information. So that's reality. That's happening. And then they want to send the kid to all the programs, volunteer, community involvement, engagement. But it's all trial and error. It's all without real certainty, guidance. So that's a lot of frustration. So they try to do everything they can. They spend up to $30,000 to get admission guidance to go to a good school. They teach them how to take tests. They teach them how to write essays. Sometimes maybe they even write for them. Some make it, some don't make it. It's again very mini, mo, and that's frustration. So that's the manifestation. Then even in China, if your kid at a certain level, certain background, you go to certain schools, and it's kind of guarantee where you're going to go, right? You probably know that. You go, your family assures you certain things. You go to Tsinghua, you graduate. You gotta make. Over here, that's no guarantee. Your parents could be make lots of money from a high position. Well, you're here, you're nobody. Your kids doesn't have any connections. There isn't. So what do you do? So it's a lot of frustration, a lot of challenge. And the Chinese, as they are, they're very, what's the word? Very resourceful people. So they have opportunity. Now, compared to the earlier generations, the second wave, they just put their head down, just work. They think they'll be recognized, they get their share of whatever, and they are satisfied with it. There's no ambition. They're satisfied. Okay, if you get a house with two-car garage with a boat, maybe you're happy, right? But today's Chinese, no, they are not. They want to compete with the next person. So they are very resourceful. That means they want to do everything possible. They want to stir things up, do things. They rebel. They do everything within their means. They think they can improve or change the situation. But it's very individualistic because they feel that, as you know, relationship, influence, it's individual, it's private concept. So they try to do the same thing, but they don't have the connection. They don't know the congressman. They are not in political office. They don't know how to and they haven't got that. That has to be built over time. For your relationship that you make with each of us. They haven't got that. But they're impatient. They cannot wait. Because in China, you don't do that. Yeah. Because if today, tomorrow happens, nothing happens, you're dead. so that's very, very challenging. So they're really trying to go through this. And the kids, so there's a big tension between the kids and themselves. The kids are the real people. The kids are the reality. They know what it takes for them to make friends, to become successful, to be supported, and they may not always want to go to MIT or Harvard. It may not fit them because of the pressure, whatever that is. It's individual decision. But the parents don't understand. So there's a lot of conflict. And furthermore, some of the parents, fathers in China, mothers here. And so it's very difficult to solve problems. And so communication is a challenge. As we know, in typical Chinese family, the parents, the father especially, his word is the command. And there's no talk back. But when you have situations when the father's not here, when the father don't understand the culture, when there's no communication, what they can really do, it's awful. The kid is stuck in the middle. And the mother says, wow, geez, I don't know what's going on. What do we do? But they're all very high achievers, right? It has to be, the family. So being high achievers, they're not getting what they want to achieve, accomplish. The result is lots of frustration. And the frustration, the result of it is, they all go back to China. That's one. Before, when we came here, we have no going back. When I came to the United States, I'm stuck here. That's it. Right? When the first generation came here, they pretty much the same way. But this generation, we'll go back to China. They can make more money. They can be more successful. But unfortunately, the reality is, it's not easy. It's not easy. If you go back now, after leaving China a few years, things are the same. The kids are going to be used to them. They say, gee, I want to be in the United States. Now I'm stuck in China. You think I'm going to be happy now? Right? The family's going to say, what happens? We've lost the opportunity. So I think it's going to build up a lot of frustration. And I don't think it's things that is good for the individual, as much as for society we live in. Because our society only works well when everybody is healthy, is productive, is giving the best they can give, right? If you got unhappy people, those of us who are not as unhappy, it's our burden. And it's not healthy situation. So I think this is what's manifesting. So it's not just from the college, but it's transferring to the high school system. Actually, even after college, I would even comment. If they don't realize the challenges facing them, because the social condition is the same when they go to start working in society. In society, people have similar expectations. People, Chinese normally expect, if I graduate from Harvard, I don't know what you feel. I should be number one wherever I go. I should be hired by the top guy. I should be having dinner with Bill Gates, and we should be, buddies. No, in this country, you earn your way. Doesn't matter whether you're a Harvard graduate or you're women graduate. You are no different. Right? You have to learn how to empower yourself and all the people that need to help you. And I think that's really the bottom line. So I think there's a chain that starts with high school. Because, even, again, when you go interview college, the question now, some of the parents, including Steve, his daughter, when you interview for college, people don't ask you, do you have 4.0, straight A, or what? Because everybody has that. They ask you, what have you done? I studied all year. I played I mean, what have you done? I spent 18 hours doing this or karate. They don't care. They say, are you an Olympian? Did you create something? Did you invent the next cancer drug? That's what they're looking for. Or make an effort to do it. Or learn how to do it. That's the key. So that's the question they ask. And so if you don't, sorry, just finish it up. After you go to college, same thing. When you go to apply for internship, applying for work, they don't ask you what kind of degree you got or how good you did. They say, what have you done during the 4 years? If you haven't done the thing, well, sorry, you're not the kind of person that will make things happen. So, sorry. Okay, so I talked too long, but
thank you for the wonderful lecture.
It's not a lecture. Sharing my story with you.
My question, I think, I want to put it more directly than Bart. I think Bart is very, very polite, and
yes.
you are also very, very polite. So, in a more straightforward way,
it takes a lawyer to do that. You're a lawyer too. You're a lot more Chinese than he is.
So my question: you are the mayor. You're the mayor for everybody in Bellevue. So
yes.
You are in a position to deal with the tension. So my question from your description of the tensions and splits that you are facing, my question, to put it very directly, is: are the third wave Chinese immigrants too selfish? Is there a general lack of public spirit among the third waves?
Yeah.
The children that you talk about, they seem to be more go-getters.
Yes.
Where is the concern of the general interest? Where is the concern of climate change? Where is the concern
yes.
of the African Americans
yes.
that are still facing much more serious
yes.
challenges today?
Yes.
So the question is: are these third wave Chinese Americans so self-centered that they are actually an obstacle to the democracy
yes.
in Bellevue?
Yes, very good.
Before you answer, everything that goes on in the China Club is off the record.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, except I'm watching when I don't know what she's That's okay. And that's one advantage I have. I've been in the community for 60 years, and the last 30, people would know me now pretty much, so they're not going to have simple comments about me one or another. It's pretty good. So the simple, easy, blunt answers, they have no concept. They are all just everybody. They're selfish in the wrong way. Actually, being philosophical, I've been. This is what I live with. Everybody's selfish. We need to be, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to do anything. There's no motivation. We are driven by our own self. So we're all different. We gotta be. But the key is, what do we do with satisfying our selfishness? It's through community, through helping everybody. Chinese don't understand that. It's not just this generation. I think historically, honestly, for the last 5,000 years, they only look so near term. It's got to be beneficial to me today, right now, me only. Then I have satisfied my selfishness. And that doesn't work in this country. In China, the situation, the environment forces you to do that. And it works that way only. If you look too far ahead, you have no ways to get over the next step. So you got to do what's good for me. I do it now. Unfortunately, when they come to this country, they don't realize this is a different world. This is a different world. And they don't know how to make that adjustment. They still believe that I need to do it now. Damn the torpedo. Right? Rest of them don't count as long as I take care of myself. And that's the mentality we want to change. And I think the world is reacting to that. It is. The world is reacting. The more Chinese deals with the rest of the world, the more they're going to find that pushback. it will happen. Before Chinese, it doesn't really. They're not the biggest guy on the block. Now they are, and they will find that more and more. So it's not going to long-term wise. Chinese going to find that a pressure. Short-term, of course, if you got $1 trillion to throw on the table, everybody will let you take an extra step. But it's not going to continue to happen. So they need to realize that. So I'm telling the young people, no, and they realize that. Just getting one. We Americans are selfish, but we realize, to get what I want to satisfy my needs, two things happen. You have to have a bigger vision that you cannot get just by yourself. Otherwise, we're all happy. Why do we even, right? But you have bigger vision, and you want to realize that vision. But Chinese don't have a big vision. Chinese say, if I can take up today, I'm happy. Tomorrow's another thing. We got a big vision. Once you have a big vision, how do I accomplish that? Not by yourself. Got to get everybody on board. I have to take care of him, you, so that we all can work together. I'll take care of my needs, same time I take care of your needs, and that's how we can. That's why American, saying is, rising tide lifts all boat. Chinese don't. Chinese, the only way I lift my boat is I step on you. Right? That's not the way it works. We are in a different world, different science, and they need to understand that. And that's the challenge. And I believe that young people, it's natural in terms of if you give everybody the equal safe harbor, right? We know that's natural. We all want to be our own. We want to be successful, have a higher goal. But the problem is the young people are not going to develop a higher goal as long as their parents tell them what their goals are. That's not high enough. But Chinese parents don't. First thing you tell Chinese parents, I want you to be like that. Why? Right? I think that's where we begin. So that's why, thank you.